Hello and welcome. It's episode number 15. 15, Deanna.
15.
Hilarious Humanitarians podcast. Hello.
Hello.
Frances Echeverria here, licensed marriage and family therapist.
Deanna Silverman, licensed clinical social worker.
And we're jumping in today to talk about the pressures of conforming. We've all been there. We've all been in that spot where we're like, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what everybody says I should do. This is the smart move.
Am I doing this? Are we doing this right now? Yeah. This doesn't feel right, but I'm doing it.
Right. Now I'm fully committed, so I better make it happen. So we wanted to talk about this today because I think especially, as you and I in our early 30s, I think we start to feel the pressure. But I think with the advent of so many people sharing so many milestones and life choices on the good old interwebs, the pressure is really on for what we should be doing. So we wanted to talk about those times where we just said, screw it. That's not happening here.
Right. I like this topic. I'm ready.
So what did you want to jump right in with? Because when we were, show prepping, as they call it, you had a great example right off the bat to jump into the pressures of conforming.
So I wanted to talk about when I got married. I feel like in our society and our culture, it could be pressure to have like this big wedding with a big bridal party and, the stuff we see like in the movies. It could be pressure from our family. It could be pressure from just pressure that we put on ourselves. And when I was getting married a couple years ago, I was planning my wedding and I was older. I think I was like 32 years old when I got married. And I always kind of knew like, for sure, I'm very like non-traditional person anyways, but I think I was still trying to do somewhat of like tradition in the sense of like, okay, there's going to be a big reception and we're going to invite 100 to 125 people. And in the middle of planning, my husband's mom passed away like unexpectedly. And I was planning the wedding and it was already stressful enough not having my mom around. And then we lost his mom. And then I just went like, screw it. Like, what am I doing? First of all, it was like really, really expensive. Like I can completely understand if you come from a family with like money and they're throwing you this big wedding. Okay, that's one thing, but we don't come from that background. So like we had to pay for it 100% ourselves. And I was like, gearing up to throw this big wedding. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure it would have been a blast, but we were stressing ourselves out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so once his mom died, I was just like, forget it. I just want to get married to this man in like a way that is like special and unique to us. Probably most people in my life aren't going to friggin' get it at all. And they really didn't. What we ended up doing was like getting married with 11 people there. We went to dinner afterwards. I rented my wedding dress. Literally it was $80. Like the entire wedding from start to finish cost us like $1,700. And the only reason why it was $1,700 is because we like splurged and stayed at the W hotel, like in Los Angeles for 3 days. And, like I didn't even have a photographer. I took my like Canon Rebel like camera and my two best friends were there and they didn't even come to the ceremony. They came to the dinner afterwards and I would like put the settings on the camera and then I would like pose me and my husband and my best friend would like stand there with the camera. I was like, okay, now push the button. Okay. And a lot of like people like may look at that and be like, oh my God, like I could never do that. It was funny because after I got married and I told people how I did it, they were like, God, I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have done it that way. Like, I wish I would have had the guts to just tell my family, like, this is exactly how I'm going to do it. I'm sorry if you don't agree, but this is how it's going to be,
So this is interesting. I looked up the average cost of a wedding in 2016.
How much was it?
Okay, so
I'm like cringing already.
yeah, so this is from The Knot, which is a wedding planning kind of app, and it says they pulled 13,000 brides and grooms who were married in 2016 for the 10th annual study. And it found that across America, the average cost of a wedding has soared to an average of $35,329, not including the honeymoon.
Ouch.
$35,000.
That's a lot of doll hairs. I can't I just don't like I said, don't get me wrong. If I had a family, like a big family who was contributing to it, I mean,
it's insane. And
it would have, I don't know if it would have been different. I'm starting, maybe it would have been different. I don't know.
It's insane. It says that the lowest price in the United States is Arkansas. That's it, right under. It's about 19,500, and then the highest cost they're saying again on average is 78,464, and that's in Manhattan. So again, this is averages, but I think that goes to say, I mean, think about like how much you make in a year.
Now, I wore Target sandals to my wedding. Well, I actually forgot. I forgot my shoes. I didn't even care. Like I did my own makeup. My best friend did my hair. Like the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I feel like I've talked to so many people who put so much pressure on themselves because they're conforming to what they feel their family wants for them, what they're feeling like I'm not good enough, or my relationship. I've heard people say like my relationship deserves more. Like it deserves this big, lavish, like wedding or party. I'm not judging.
And that's okay. That's okay.
And that's totally okay.
But again, what we're talking about is like the pressure to conform. And I think when you have those moments where you're really going like, what the hell am I doing? For instance, clinically, I've dealt with a lot of women, new brides, who what happens is there's all this pressure going up to the wedding, all this pressure, all this excitement. They get married and there is a drastic drop in mood. It's like the bridal blues. There's this huge letdown into everyday life. And then on top of that, you've got the expenses and the adjustment to newlywed life. The other thing that I heard once, and by the way, in the very first episode, we talked about like, I've been married twice, no longer married. So my weddings didn't cost anywhere near that. But anyway, there was this one time I was talking to somebody and they said they absolutely knew they were marrying the wrong man, but she wanted a princess wedding.
Oh no.
Can you imagine?
No, I can't even go on dates with people who I'm not really that into. Like and if I find myself on a date with somebody I'm not into, I'm like, this has been real. Like I'm not rude, but I just I get so uncomfortable. Like I don't want to waste anybody's time. So I got to go. I couldn't imagine walking down an aisle and saying I do. That makes me want to throw up. My old self that it was like a commitment phobe is coming back and having PTSD about this.
Well, and it's happened, and I wish I could say that that's just some fictional type thing I've heard about, but I've seen it more than once. And again, going back to kind of the blues that hit right after something really big. And again, if you're really into the big wedding, if that's really your deal, then that's great. But I think it goes back to the pressure to conform and having to have all the perfect photos and the pomp and the circumstance. But weddings aren't the only thing where we often find ourselves conforming. Often that can happen in, growing up, like where you think your life path is going to go.
And by the way, I want to say, I love being a guest at big weddings. Don't get me wrong. I am not anti big wedding party.
You just don't want to pay for it.
I just don't want to pay for it. It's not that I don't want to pay for it. I don't have the money to pay for it. So I'm not going to go broke trying to throw a party. There's just there's no judgment here. If you can do it and it's the right thing for you, then have at it and invite me, because I will bring you a nice gift. But if you're currently planning a wedding where you guys are like already fighting about finances, or you're just feeling like this isn't exactly what is in my heart, like this isn't really my style at all, then I would say take some time to like reflect on that and consider your options. By the way, I also shaved our wedding date in the back of my head. I came home, I got my nails done, and then I went to go get like a trim. And remember when, like, I don't know if this is still a style, but like the
undercut.
part, yeah, the undercut. I had like hearts and stuff. And then I decided, oh, I'm gonna shave our wedding date into the back of my head. And then so I came home and I was like, look what I did. My husband, my fiance at the time, was like, I can't. He just started laughing. He was like, I'm not surprised. He was just like, okay. And it didn't show like on our wedding day. Like my hair was long at the time, but it was like my little secret, like wearing like socks that say fuck you on them. And like you're wearing pants. By the way, I love socks with like funny stuff on them. So
I got a pair of them for Christmas that says ringleader of the shit show circus.
Oh my God. I needed those.
So one thing I wanted to bring out in terms of pressure of conformity is sometimes there are there's family traditions, right? Family traditions that often go into family businesses and lines of study. Like if you come from a family of doctors, perhaps there's a pressure to go to, I don't know, doctor school, medical school.
Doctor school?
Doctor school. As you can tell, I never went there. Growing up in Central California, there are a lot of family-owned farming businesses. And my dad, he moved here from Spain when he was 17, didn't know a word of English. He was a shepherd down near like the Mojave Desert and worked his way up through several different jobs into this point where he has an agricultural business. And growing up, we would go see dad out in the field. It was that kind of thing. But growing up, I just assumed like I was an ag kid, rode horses, did all that. And here's dad with a company business. And I just figured that's what I would do until I got fired.
You got fired from your dad's company?
I did. So what ended up happening is during high school, during the summer, the minute I could get my worker's permit, which it was like between freshman and sophomore year. And as we talked about, like I started high school when I was 12. So that next summer I went to work. I worked all summer long, every summer through school. And then when I graduated, you're making the adjustment to college and whatnot. Long story short, I had gotten like a job interview working like basically contract work with USPS, United States Postal Service. And I called into work one day to see when I was coming into work, and they were like, "Oh, we don't need you anymore." Oh, what? Okay. Okay.
Wait, they like ghosted you? They didn't even give you like there's like, dad didn't even give you like a write-up or a warning.
No, my dad didn't even talk. It wasn't my dad. It was like I called the office and talked to the manager there. And I was like, okay, when am I going to come in? Because I worked certain times of the year when it was busy. And she's like, oh, it's good. We don't need you now. And I was like, okay, well, come to find out later, like my dad just kind of some smart ass comment made like the comment that I was fired. And I think how the story goes, and someone could argue with me, but you can't argue with my dead mother. And this is how I remember the story. I think my mom got a little braggy pants about the job I had gotten. Mm-hmm. And so it came up, good old mom, how much I would be making working for the postal service and how I was not making that working for my parents. And so that was a quote, I'm not even joking, bad for morale. So I got fired. This is the only time I've been fired, by the way. It was by my dad when I was like 16 or 17.
That's so funny. I love that.
So, but I was an ag major, and all the way through like my last couple of semesters at Fresno State, I was an ag major. I just thought,
what is ag?
Agriculture. I was in, oh my God, now I can't even remember what ag communications or something. It's like, so basically, like I took like viticulture classes and classes on stone fruit and animal science and like all of that. But then, because it's with the plan of going into the agricultural field. And I was really into that. And then
that's so foreign to me.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, now when people are like, you did that, what? So I did like a complete 180. And then I ended up working at a radio station. So my parents were like, this is what she's done with her life.
She tells jokes on air. I'm not sure who's listening to her, though. Okay. Be proud of me, please, Mom and Dad. This is going to go somewhere soon. I promise.
Right. It hasn't, but it's...
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where we are in the podcast ranks. They're like, so they have this thing called a pod. I don't know if they sit on it or talk into something. That's cool.
You asked, I've been doing radio 17 years now, and I have to laugh about this because otherwise I would cry. My dad couldn't tell you what radio station I'm on.
Oh my God.
And
why?
I've been there 7 years. So the moral of the story being, my happiness really did hinge on the fact that I did not go into the family business. And I see that all the time in my clinical practice. And sometimes people don't have choices. They do stay in the company business. It makes sense. You can make more money doing that. There's the whole, heir to the throne type of deal. But sometimes when you do that against everything inside of you saying not to, you make compromises. There are boundary violations that come into place. And sometimes it is impossible, to be happy when you're combining business and family. And for me, I just couldn't do it.
Well, good for you for making that decision. I'm sure it was a really difficult one. And maybe...
Well, no, Dad made it easy.
Yeah, that's true. Dad's like, I'm giving you no choice. You're fired. Figure out a new career.
Oh, he meant well.
These are really can be considered heavier topics, but is there other things that you've been non-conforming to? I hate purses. I've never been, I hate them.
I carry the biggest purse I can find. I have everything you could possibly ever need.
No, I am a backpack girl. I've always been a backpack girl. And I cannot believe I can believe I'm going to admit this because I'm proud. I love fanny packs.
Then this is your time because they're back.
I saw, and I was like, do I literally need to scrounge up old pictures of me showing that I have been wearing fanny packs for a while? So people could be like, she's not making this up. She legit was wearing fanny packs. They are incredible. So practical. I absolutely love them. But anyhow, I don't get it. All my girlfriends love purses. I've never gotten it. It's wait, it's only on one shoulder. It feels weird. It can slip off easily. I'm not sure. I need to even out the score. So I like backpacks. Sounds really stupid and silly, but it's kind of as a woman, I've gotten weird looks from wearing backpacks and fanny packs. But it's weird. It does make me feel some kind of way. I'm not entirely sure what kind of way it makes me feel, and I'm not going to change it. But it's just interesting, the unspoken sort
agreement.
Agreement, expectation of what women should be dressing like. Heels, for example. I don't own a pair of heels. Well, maybe I do own them, but they have like dust all over them. I cannot remember the last time I wore them. And if I did, I was barefoot like an hour later. I just can't wear them. I'm the like combat boot girl in a dress. Like that's my style.
It's funny you say that because today I am wearing combat boots, but last week I was wearing heels. So,
I can't do it.
When you brought this up on kind of silly things that make us stop and think, I remember, and we're talking about today, the pressures of conforming and those times that we've definitely fallen into line and those times where we've just said, fuck it, fuck you, whatever, I'll do what I want. Do you remember when Pink, the singer Pink first came out and her very first song, she had short pink hair and it was something like in a boxing ring and she had a tongue ring. Do you remember that video?
It's conjuring up.
Okay.
Now I need to look it up.
Yeah, definitely. So it was way back in the day when she came out. I was like, oh my God, I want to cut my hair short. Now, nobody in my family, I'm one of 6 girls, no one ever had short hair. And I always was like very uncomfortable about it. You know, I had body image issues, weight issues. Like, could I pull off short hair, whatever. Fast forward, it wasn't until right before I turned 30, because I kept my hair long, because my kid's dad loved long hair, you know, and it was one of these things where it didn't really matter. It was this unspoken, I'm not going to cut it off because that's how he likes it type of deal.
Yeah, been there.
Right. And now you have purple hair. And
Yeah.
so I cut it all off, and it was the most freeing, amazing experience to cut all my hair off. And I love when I get a fresh haircut and my head is shaved. I love touching it. I do my hair now, which is different. And you know what's the one thing that drives me fucking crazy, Deanna?
Just go for it.
When people go, "Oh, I liked you so much better with long hair." I don't give a flying fuck what your opinion is. I liked you better when you kept your mouth shut and didn't sound like a total asshole. How about that? When did I welcome that?
I was just about to say that. Yeah, well, I liked it better when you were giving no lip. Shut the hell up.
And so when you welcome, it's like you do something different that's a little non-conforming, and then people want to point out because there's some sort of spoken agreement or unspoken agreement that they get to have an opinion on what you've done. So what really drives me nuts, and I try and keep my mouth shut, is like here and there I've grown my hair out a little bit longer or whatever. And those same people that like to really point out that they liked me with long hair will be like, "Oh my God, your hair's getting longer."
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I am going to punch you in the throat.
I know. It's really, really frustrating. I hear you. I was in a relationship similar to yours where like the guy, this is in my early 20s, he loved long hair. So I kept my hair long, and I have naturally curly hair that's just out of control. And when it gets really long, it just hits that weird point where like it stops growing and grows in width and then just starts breaking off. Like it just gets nasty. And like, when we broke up, one of the first, you know, it's like the breakup haircut. I can attest to the feeling of like it feeling liberating. Even when I get a hair trim, it's so weird. Like when I get my hair trimmed, I'll look down at the floor and see the like hair dropping off, and I'm like, oh yes. Like it's just so neat. And I never cut my hair as short as you, even though I've always wanted to, but the texture of my hair I don't think would, it just wouldn't jive well. But I used to have that like haircut where it was a little bit longer in the front and shorter in the back. So like they would take it up with a razor in the back. And I remember thinking like, this is what it would feel like if I would just have the guts to cut it off like all the way. I think it's amazing when people make decisions just based solely on what is right for them, and who cares, you know?
What is the last thing, if I were to ask you, what is the last thing that you did that was solely right for you, that you kind of said, to hell with the conformity piece? It has to do with your job.
Oh yeah, thanks for keeping me on track. I was totally going to go in opposite direction. I love Frances. She keeps me in line. The past recent episodes, I've talked about me quitting my county job. I was working for the county of Ventura, and I quit my job to go into self-employment, spend more time at home with my daughter, and just work on just independent projects. And that was a major, I mean, that was months and months thinking about this. I mean, I was pretty much thinking about it from the time that my maternity leave, you know, was expired and I was due to return to work. I was like, what can I do to not go back? And I just realized like, no, I have to go back. We get our health insurance through me. And there's a lot of security in county jobs with your health insurance and pension and whatnot. And you worked for the county, right? Too.
Yeah, I did just short of 3 years at a county, 2 counties north of here. So I was spending an hour and a half to 2 hours a day commuting.
Did you feel like conflicted when you were making that decision about leaving, or was it easy?
It was really hard because it was a great job at the point where I took it. It was right after I graduated. So I was able to get supervision because we have to do that as we're in our licensure process. And oftentimes you have to pay for that. So I got a job where it was paying me really well and providing supervision and providing benefits. And at the time, it was right when I split from my kid's dad. And to be completely honest, I wouldn't have been able to be self-sufficient without it. So it was really well timed for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was putting in my time for the next almost 3 years. And it was good, and I needed it, and I wouldn't redo it because it made me, it put me in a place where I could be financially independent, but I was miserable by the end. I swear I still wake up with nightmares that I haven't turned in my paperwork or done something. There were times when I was driving, when I was exhausted and tired, and and sometimes you have to put one foot in front of the other and do it. And I remember making the decision to quit, and it was a significant pay cut and a step down. I didn't even need my intern number at the time to work as a social worker, but I just wanted to be in town for things like, the kids are sick, come pick them up at school.
Mm-hmm.
Or what if there was an emergency? I'm an hour away. And I had to make the decision that, yeah, it was smart, and there were a lot of people that were lifers there. You can get the retirement, you're part of the union, all that stuff, but I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. I knew it wasn't good for my own well-being. And I think especially working in the mental health field, you need to keep that in mind. If you have children, you need to keep that in mind, because what I had to tell myself is I'm helping to fix other people's kids and I'm coming home and I don't even have the energy to deal with mine.
Yeah.
I was supported by the staff up there, but I did get a lot of feedback from people, some family members, about how that was a dumb choice.
Mm-hmm.
You don't realize what you have. Well, you don't realize what don't have as a result.
Oh, I can completely relate. In fact, my brother, I didn't tell most of my family. I didn't tell pretty much anybody that I was quitting my job other than my husband. And I quit, and I was like 2 weeks in, and my brother calls me and he said, hey, I don't want to make a big deal out of this. I don't want to argue. I don't want to fight, but I just want to let you know, like, I'm pretty, like, I wish you would have come to me and told me that you quit your job instead of me finding out through Instagram, like I was one of your like followers. And I told, I was like, I get that. And I'm sorry that I didn't come to you directly, but I had, whether or not, like, if my family hears this and disagrees, like whether or not they agree or disagree, like in the past when I would bring it up to them, this is what I'm thinking about doing, I would get a lot of feedback that felt kind of pressure to stay where I was. And it was such a huge decision to leave that job because of the security that I didn't need anybody in my ear telling me no, telling me this isn't a good idea, Deanna, because it's like, no, I know what's good for me. And just as you were saying, like, we get it, like the concrete stuff, like the salary and the union and the pension and the benefits, we get it. This is why it is so difficult thinking about leaving it. But what nobody understands but you is how you're feeling every single day, the mental toll it's taking on your well-being. And so I didn't tell anybody. They just kind of found out through like my Instagram posts and whatnot, which I'm not saying is like the best way to go, but it felt right for me at the time.
On that note of not telling people, I didn't have a conversation with anybody in my family about like when my relationships ended until they were done.
I kind of like that though. Like I've done that in the past too, but that came out of in every other relationship before then, I would be like a blabbermouth and I would tell everybody everything, which I found was like a mistake, because then once you make up with the person, like your family members are like, oh no, I'm still mad at them, and you're like, right, we figured it out. Like, can you be nice to them now? So then I like flipped the script and told them nothing. And then when we would break up, they would be like in shock, like, what the heck just happened? Did you get that? Or were they like,
I did. I might have run it by like one of my parents or something, but really there was never a sit down conversation. Like I had those conversations with my immediate support system. I had those conversations with the person I was splitting up with and my own therapist. So it was one of those things where, I had one of my older sisters had been divorced and then I was, and then since then, another one has gotten divorced. There's 6 of us. So, that's kind of the way it goes. But it was one of those things, I had that there was pressure to conform in that, we hear it a lot, stay together for the kids. Kids need both parents in the home. It's stable. It's this and that. And I think sometimes when we conform in those ways and put aside all of our internal red flags that are going, hey, wait a second, this doesn't work. We can set ourselves off in a direction that's kind of crazy. Now the positive thing that came out of that, and I think kind of tying into our topic of the pressures of conforming, when me and the kid's dad split, I jokingly say I kept my mother-in-law in the divorce because we have managed to remain close within the confines, I guess, of normality, if that's something that you can say. I mean, we see each other, like I have no problem, no shame saying I love her, that kind of stuff. And it's because she was very much like a really solid mother figure kind of type to me. And so it's one of those situations where, I think we can even just take that to breakups. Breakups do not have to be nasty. They don't have to be, I hate you, I hope you die, never talk to me again. Have you had that situation where you've stayed friends after?
Yeah. In fact, most of my relationships have ended real, like civilly, like on civil terms. And when my mom died, I'm not kidding, like 4 or 5 of my ex-boyfriends were there.
Okay, I have to ask, were you just looking around the room going, I've had sex with a lot of people at this funeral?
Looking back, I feel like those questions do come to mind, but I wasn't thinking at that point.
Well, now I know, but now with some,
But now with some time passed, I do laugh at, it's like, wow, okay. I mean, either they just love my mom a lot. She was super rad, but no, I have always stayed in contact. Like I could pretty much go through my phone and like text message any single ex-boyfriend, be like, hey, what's up? How's it going? How's your mom? How's your dad? And it'd be really like strictly platonic. I don't know. I actually have talked about this. Oh, I can't remember who it was. I did like a Q&A. Oh, RX Breakup, the app. And they asked me about that. Like, have you stayed friends with exes? And I was like, my parents like ruined me like in a positive way. They got divorced when I was 13 and they made it so civil and they stayed very, very good friends. And my dad had like a key to our house and he was seriously over at our house all the time. And when my parents remarried, they would literally go on double dates together where I was like, are you guys serious? Is this like a weird, what is this? And like at my mom's funeral, my dad was in the front row with us hysterically crying and he had been remarried by that time at that time. And so my role model showed me that like things can end romantically, but still carry on as friends. But like the memo that like I didn't get was typically this happens when people have children. Like I just applied that in my brain to like, oh, this is how it works. So like looking back at it, I'm still a supporter of people remaining friends and understanding that breakups can happen and it doesn't have to be this huge blowout. But now where I am in my life now, if I was ever single again and we broke up, I don't think I would really want to remain platonic. Like it's not like a value of mine anymore. Like it ended, I wish you well, goodbye. But in my 20s, like I made it this point to like be Like I would go, I had a boyfriend that I was with for 4 years who ended up like emotionally cheating on me. Like I ended up finding out he was talking to some girl. Oh, I swear to God, she's nothing. And like a month later, they're dating, right? And then fast forward, they're like, they've been together for 5 years. I would go on lunch dates with them. Him and her. I am like, I could see your face. I wish everyone could see Frances's face right now. Like, like, what are you talking about? I just would get over it and I don't know. And then I would just be buds. I'd end up becoming friends with the girl. I'm weird. I don't know. So
Well,
yeah,
a
I'm
little
totally
bit.
into non-conforming.
A little bit of weird is all right, I think.
Yeah. But like I said, I don't know if that is something I would do now. Like it's a little, I don't know. No boundaries were crossed in terms of like being inappropriate. I was always really clear. And to be fair to my ex-boyfriends, they never tried anything. Like it was literally just platonic. So it does take a lot of work to get to that place, and both parties have to be on the same page. I think it's really, really unfair when somebody, a couple breaks up and one of them is like, I still want to be your friend, and the other person's like hurting really badly and like, I can't see you. I don't want to be your friend. I want to be with you, or I hate you and I never want to see you again. You can't expect the other person to be like, get BFF necklaces and go to the movies and be platonic buds. Like you can't, both parties have to be on the same page to make this kind of thing work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before we wrap up the topic of conforming, I want to circle back to like the whole marriage thing, because people that know me like still crack up about this story. So with engagements, for example, you know, we always see people who get like engaged at Disneyland or these big productions, you know, which don't get me wrong, I think it is super cute. I just know, and I always knew that's not for me. Like if my future, when I was single, like when my future fiance, if I ever get engaged, if he started singing at Disneyland and
Oh
then
my
an
God.
orchestra came out.
Or on like a jumbotron with everybody watching.
Yes, I would explode in awkward dust. I would turn into awkward dust and I would fly away to a land far, far away. Like I cannot deal with being in the limelight. That wouldn't work for me.
Okay.
I would be so awkward. So when my husband and I were dating one night, I just looked at him and I was like, I love you. We were saying I love you at that point. And he's like, I want to marry you someday. And I said, I do too. And then we were like, you want to get engaged at some point? And I was like, yeah. And I go, but when we do get engaged, I need you to know that you can't do it in public. It has to be in our house. I would like it to be on New Year's Eve. I just really, really like that date. And I was like, I need my dog to be there. Tessa has to be there. And I would really like it if we just ordered sushi, but I don't want to go to the sushi restaurant. Like it needs to be brought in. So it doesn't end there. I was like, and I know what type of ring I want. Like it's very specific. So I designed my ring, and like, I designed it from like start to finish, and I went to go pick it up with him. And he was like, oh my God, Deanna, it's beautiful. And I'm like, can I see it? He was like, sure. He opens up the box and I was like, can I wear it? And he was like, I haven't. It was during like Christmas week. He's like, it's not New Year's Eve yet. I'm like, but I want to wear it. He can't say no to me. So he's like, fine. So I wore it that entire week. And then New Year's Eve came and he goes, I need the ring back. Like, I'm about to propose to you. So I was like, fine. And I'm like sitting there with my sushi and my dog. And he like goes in the other room with the ring. And then he comes back out. And he was like, Deanna, will you marry me? And I was like, yes. And then we went back to eating sushi. And it was like the most perfect engagement. It's my most perfect ring because I was able to like custom design it the way I want it. This wouldn't work for a lot of women or a lot of men. Like it just wouldn't work for a lot of people. But it doesn't matter. That's what it worked for me. And really, like when people really, really know my personality and they know me in real life, when they hear that story, they're like, that is 100% Deanna. Like that has your stamp all over it, you know? And it's like, I was just staying true to myself. I don't know. So there you go. I'm a bit non-conforming.
I just love how you laid it all out so perfectly for him.
I got to have my dog. I want sushi. I need to be in my pajama pants. And that's what happened.
Sometimes, you know what? You just need pajama pants. They make everything better.
Yeah, right? Oh, it was so good. Anyway.
So we welcome you to try pushing back against conformity in some way in this next week. And you can think about it in terms of even, you know, little small things I think that are expected of you on a regular basis. I'm not saying go out and, you know, like smash all the rules and start a riot, but just to kind of question, I think, some of the times where you might stop doing something because you're afraid of being the I wanted to say black sheep, but I'm like, how about the cool alpaca? Because that just sounds cooler.
Yeah, exactly.
In the group, I think that could be a cool thing. So
I'm the cool. Wait. We're the cool alpaca. Alpaca. How do you pronounce that?
I've heard both. I don't know. They're cute though.
I'm the cool alpaca of the group.
One thing I did want to bring up before we get into our good news stuff is something I've been kind of challenging clients on this week and myself is, you mentioned earlier you don't own any heels, right?
Mm-hmm.
I realize I have a closet full of them that I didn't wear after I really almost broke my ankle. And finally, my floors are finished in my house, by the way, finally, 15 episodes in.
Woohoo!
I realized that like I have a bunch of stuff I don't use. So my goal over the next few weeks is to use stuff that I haven't used lately, or I'm going to have to get rid of it. Like it's my own little rule.
I like that.
Yeah. So whether it's things in your closet or in your kitchen or in your garage or at the office or whatever, or maybe it's a skill you haven't busted out in a while, I think it could be a little fun into your week to try and see if you can't work in a little variety with the things that you already have. By the way, I love what you just did with your hair on video.
Can we describe it? This is like,
it's a high ponytail. It's what I would expect you put on Micah. Because it's literally just your bangs.
It's just my bangs in a high ponytail.
You right now don't look like an alpaca. You look like Rainbow Dash.
Oh, I'll take it. Whatever.
As we're wrapping up, you and I talked about something about self-care, right? We've been saying the importance of doing self-care. So we thought we'd start mixing in this podcast, the things we've been doing for self-care. So give me something.
Yeah. So for this week, my self-care activity continues to be bath time. I actually had somebody on Instagram recently DM me. I think I did some Instagram live videos from the bath. That sounds really sexual, and it absolutely was not. I was like, had a bubble beard, and I was like asking weird questions about like blizzards and how people survive on the East Coast. But anyhow, she said, how do you have time to take a bath? And she was like legitimately asking me. And it took me by surprise a little bit, but then I realized, well, okay, I said, this is what I need for my self-care. So my husband, for example, he needs video game time like once a week. After the baby's asleep and I'm in bed and I'm watching my guilty pleasure shows, my husband likes to play video games for a couple hours. That's his self-care. My self-care is bath time. So he knows if I say, I really need to take a bath, I need 20 minutes to myself, I need this. He's like, all right, go for it. So I just run it by my family to make sure everybody's cool and let them know this is what I need to be the best version of myself. And they're more than happy to accommodate that. So it sounds simple, but a lot of people don't have time for baths. Shoot, the last house we lived in didn't even have a bathtub. And I was pregnant. It was horrible. So I love bath time.
So my self-care is often kind of, I call it active restoration. One of the things that I've kind of just in adulthood embraced is that and appreciate. I tried to have an appreciation for my body, and we've talked about this a little bit. My mom was pretty sick, and kind of slowly, well, not slowly, quickly lost the use of just simple things like being able to push herself out of bed, mostly because she just stopped using those particular muscles. So anyway, long story short, I like to challenge myself and I like to get out into nature. So my big self-care thing was a really long hike on Saturday, when who knew there's amazing hiking outside of Reno when I was traveling. So that was mine, and taking in the scenery
Very
and the
cool.
people. And there was a little bit of snow, which was weird because there should be way more snow in February, but that was my self-care. So
Very cool.
whether it's bubble baths or hiking or taking time to go see whatever movies out there, or just giving yourself a moment to catch your breath. I think the self-care piece, I challenge everybody to try and fit some of that in on a daily basis. If that seems like too much, at least weekly, because if you don't make yourself a priority, no one else will.
And also send us your self-care tips. Like, tell us what you're doing to take care of yourself. You can DM us on Instagram at Humanitarians podcast on Instagram. You can email us at humanitarianspodcast@gmail.com. So we'll pick some of our, not all of it is our favorites, but we'll pick a few and maybe we'll highlight them. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I wanted to say too, if sometimes people are like, I get this especially from males, no offense, but it's true, fellas. They'll be like, that's dumb. Self-care is dumb. What I call it is distress tolerance building skills. So if you need to be like, make it an argument to your boss or your partner, they're like, oh, self-care, you need to go do it. No, I'm working on my distress tolerance building skills, because the reality is, if you don't have any gas in the tank, you can't punch it when the stress comes. So you need to be able to do those things to take care of yourself.
Let's not overthink it too. Like, self-care could be drinking enough water.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Eating
like
regularly, getting up to go to the bathroom when you're busy.
Right. A huge one is getting enough sleep. Like, if you're sleep deprived, if you don't get enough sleep, man, everything suffers.
Yeah.
So don't overthink it. Self-care can be something big. It could be something huge. I'm sure everybody is doing some element of self-care daily, if not, weekly.
Just do more of it.
Just do more of it and be aware of it, like when you're actively participating in self-care, because it can be really, really healing.
And as we're wrapping up, one self-care idea is to find great stories that are floating around on the internet. And Deanna has one to wrap up our good news feed.
Yeah, so the good news feed story of this week is in downtown Los Angeles. They are putting in meters, they look like parking meters, but they're going to be like brightly colored to not confuse everybody. And they're going to be accepting donations for the homeless. It's like a program that's already been implemented in Pasadena and somewhere else. I don't remember where, but the revenue will go toward the Skid Row based C3 program. And I just think it's really awesome. A lot of times we don't know, let's be honest, like sometimes we're lazy. We want to help. We don't know where to help. And sometimes if you're just like walking along and you see a brightly colored meter and you realize like, oh yeah, that's that meter that I can just throw in a couple quarters or whatever, it can go towards a really good cause. So I just thought that was really forward thinking and helping our fellow human.
I found out about an organization in town. This is kind of my good news thing to wrap things up. And we've teamed up with them at my other job with the radio station. But there's an organization in Fresno that's called Breaking the Chains. And people might not realize it, but this triangle through the valley, this kind of area that we are between the I-5 and the 99, if you're familiar with California, is a hotbed for human trafficking. Mm-hmm. Which is horrifying. Not just adults, not just women, but also children and males too. But anyway, this organization works to rehabilitate women with trauma-focused care, therapeutic interventions, kind of like a halfway house where they can stay, some of them with their children, to try and establish a new sense of normalcy, having come out of the human trafficking trade. So I thought that was pretty awesome. I learned about them. And if you are interested, you can check out Breaking the Chains. Just Google it, Breaking the Chains Fresno. And it's run by a survivor, a second generation survivor.
Oh, wow.
Let that soak in for a moment. I think it's just a great organization, and I think they're doing amazing things with people here in the Valley and families and healing them. And I talked to the founder this week, and I was just like, I love you. Just use me. What do you need me for? I'm there to help. So anyway.
Yeah, that's wonderful work they're doing. Much needed.
And as we're wrapping up now that you're feeling all warm and fuzzy, we did get some fan mail.
Woohoo! We actually got quite a few. We got like 10 postcards. And I'm just going to read a few sentences from a really nice letter that was written to us. And also, she was so cute. She was like, I needed an excuse to use this stationery. She sent us this card that says things are about to get really good. And it's like shiny and sparkly. I love it. She wrote us a big letter, and here's a few sentences from it. It just says, thank you for sharing your stories and parts of your life. Thank you for being kind, and mostly thank you for being so funny. We need laughter. The world can be so harsh. Laughter, like music, connects us. A laugh is the same in any language. I'm a huge fan of what you're doing. I think it's given people like me a safe place to decompress and relate to one another. So thank you so much. Keep the fan mail coming to the P.O. box listed in the description of each episode. You can follow me at Hilarious Humanitarian on Instagram. You can follow us on Instagram at Humanitarians Podcast. And Frances is at Shut Up Skippy on Instagram as well.
Yep. Thank you. And we'll be back next week.